It's 2 p.m. Every good afternoon and welcome to Market View. This is the final episode this week. My name is Lungile Makakula. Thank you for tuning in. Watch us on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. We are on DSTV channel 286 as well. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us. The Federation of Eswatini Business Community, FESPIC, hosted the first ever business seminar yesterday in the Lubombo region at Eswatini Lodge. This event brought together stakeholders, investors, and key players in various industries to foster collaboration, networking, and business development opportunities. They also discussed potential investment opportunities and strategic partnership. Representatives of the Lubombo Regional Administrator, the Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Agriculture attended to provide insights into government policies, support, and initiatives aimed at fostering business growth in Eswatini. FESPIC President Tam Dupont encouraged SMEs to participate in the trade fair. He also emphasized the need for ongoing regional committee meetings at the first Regional Committee of Lubombo Business Conference. We will listen to his remarks and other stakeholders' remarks after the break. For now, let's go for business news. Welcome back. This is Market View. If you've just joined us, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. This is our news. Unpacking U.S. campaign spending. Elections in the United States are some of the most expensive in the world. In 2020, more than $16 billion was spent on U.S. presidential and congressional races. 2024 election costs are likely to be higher. How do campaigns help finance these elections fundraising?
Our president, I think we're going to do very well.
The U.S. 2024 campaign season is in full swing. And that means lots and lots of fundraisers.
It's kind of like an arms race. If one side is on all the time, you've got to be on all the time. The spending isn't influencing voters as much. It's to say my campaign is as strong as my opponent's.
And spending keeps going up.
Thank you. For 5 days, you Thank you.
The 2008 campaign shattered spending records at $5.3 billion.
Be your president. Remember, folks.
In 2012 and 2016, campaigns spent more than $6 billion. And by 2020, that number rose to more than $14 billion. Foster says the rise in campaign spending comes down to two important factors.
A lot of increase in grassroots, small dollar donations, but also the fact that we're seeing a transition from traditional campaign committees raising money to relying on independent expenditures, the super PAC.
Super PACs are groups, including corporations and labor unions, that can raise and spend unlimited amounts of money for a campaign, thanks to a 2010 Supreme Court ruling known as Citizens United. The one stipulation: they cannot coordinate directly with the candidates. Critics say the ruling is terrible for democracy, but Michael Cohen, author of the book Modern Political Campaigns, takes an optimistic view.
If you're wondering whether or not the United States buys its elections, I would say to you that it's been less now than it's ever been in my lifetime. And the reason why is because of the spike in individual contributors, and also the reporting is very transparent now. We all know where a lot of this money is coming from, or at least going to. So even with super PACs where you don't know who's giving money to them, you have a sense because the reporting is actually very good.
So where is the bulk of that money going?
These networks, they anticipate this. This is their Super Bowl. This is like it's bigger than Super Bowl for them because they know they can charge so much money.
That's not the case in other democracies around the world.
We tend to spend so much more money than a lot of other countries around the world because we have fewer rules on when you can campaign and how much it can raise.
For example, in Canada, federal elections may only last 36 to 50 days, and there's a cap on how much a political party can spend. In Germany, local and state laws ban TV ads from airing until 1 month before the election. But one country may prove to have an even pricier election than the U.S. this year. India, which voted last May, was projected to spend almost 1.35 trillion rupees, or $16.1 billion, according to the New Delhi Center for Media Studies. It's unclear if U.S. campaign spending will top its 2020 numbers. But the campaigns know any money that they do not manage to spend before November cannot go into a politician's personal bank account.
You used to be able to roll that money over or take it with you to go build a house for yourself or go spend money on your own. Post-Watergate rules are that you cannot use it for your own personal interests, but you can keep it for future campaigns. Or importantly, if you decide that you're not going to run, you can give it to other political action committees, or you can give it to political parties. Or if you wanted to, and some people do this, they even refund some of that money, or they go ahead and they give it to charity.
It's 7 minutes after 2, and that's it for our business news. After the break, we take you through the activities of the day at the first ever Lubombo Business Conference.
Do you reside in any of the Ubombo sugar communities or nearby areas? Here is a notice. A door-to-door TV license exercise will be conducted in your area from the 19th to the 28th of June 2024. The personnel conducting this exercise would be easily recognizable by their attire bearing the Eswatini TV logo and their individual name tags. Your cooperation is valuable to us, and we respectfully request that you participate in this exercise truthfully. Do not be deceived. It is not appropriate for anyone to request money for a television license. Make payment for your TV license by using MTN mobile money at 76222000 or by visiting the nearest post office. Eswatini TV, Sibugo Semaswati.
Welcome back. Yes, so watching Market View, the final episode this week. We continue with the program. The Lubombo region FESPIC held its first ever business conference yesterday with SMEs. FESPIC chairperson or President Tam Dupont encouraged SMEs to participate in this year's international trade fair. He also emphasized the need for ongoing regional committee meetings at the first regional committee of Lubombo Business Conference in Malinza.
Whatever good wishes God for the country. First world does not mean we need to be organized. We need to be setting meetings like this. Because we didn't do the introspection. Let's appreciate the when it. Says corner again. Vele besesiphelele amandla ukuthi yini. But nyalo sesukela amarisho. And nasasiyale international trade fair. Kunemabhasi bekawalonjile uhulumende ukuthi tawumikisa sive le. Unity is strength. Yes. Lesikwenda konje kwami ukhutsata and ukujabulela. I-data iyavela, as much as we've got AI and IT, vele we need ukuthi nasiphantsha lapha FESPIC. We need to know ukuthi yini, manufacturing yini, uvele nje ukuthi ba. Which office that is capable of doing that? What can you get? Then yalethi market that kadodwa. I-COVID yasibulala yahlobo nabatali but safuna khona sakufundisa khona. Singajwayele ukusheshe esikole. Cleanliness is key. Ikhoma lapho nje lapha ukuthi running thing ne-drainage soka bekhona. Masiphathonga safundisa. Let us do things differently. Let us do things differently. We are selling very good products. Yeah. But it's what see the malapa kuntande ma plastic. Belpangana. Nabafika abantu abambazi bafuna. Let's have a domestic model. Kutsi nakusho ukuthi ndoboleke imali ni nebaka FESPIC. I-waiver yenu itawuthi. Yes, isebenzisa imali yebantu. Then keep the money. Have a product that will accommodate la maswada abaphasi. First we got teaching. We left with Manzini and Shiselweni. By hook or by crook, by next week, if we are married in other standalone. So those not figure show. Sikombi said the trade fair, we are ready. Now, small business. What is that? It's a port that I'm selling. That's how. So that's what I'll figure. The amount of the corporate sold. So, first week, I think we have another capacity to inspect the band. Once we have the data, you are raised that the first week. Your problem was solved. Very impressive, Lubombo. And you are amongst the first one. You are set up by a regional committee.
That was the president of Facebook, Mr. Tam Dupont, basically just giving business tips to SMEs on how to keep their businesses sustainable and also encouraging them to attend this year's International Trade Fair. Another speaker at the conference was the CEO, Mr. Benjamin Simelane, who also urged large businesses to assist SMEs in becoming independent and sustainable. He emphasizes the importance of listening and addressing their challenges to foster a thriving business ecosystem.
Sihamba emagameni alesitubulo nayo vision lela phezulu. It's an audible voice for empowering indigenous businesses for sustainability through unfettered access to capital and opportunities. Okusho ukuthi soma business sifanele simsite atimele yena tokhona kuchubeka. Athi makatimele bese lo msebenzi uba sustainable. Kumtoka kakhulu ke, that's a key word. Lama business lamakhulu aya angafuni ulethe namuhla kusasa awusakhona. Uyaletha ngaleli langa awusakhona. Hayi abahambisani naloko. So kufanele lo mkhicido wakho uthi ngokufika ezingeni uhlale kulelo zinga siphelwana. Okusho ukuthi kube sustainable. So ke kumtoka kakhulu ke lokho ngicela lo sivele siyibambe lapho. The office ke lisebenzisene kakhulu ningaliyekeli national office ayisiyo yale mahhovisi yokuthi nithume mase khona lo ngakuboni kahle khuluma nele office lokunye ke futhi lesikwenta ko sile office sihlala tindlebe tethu dilethu silalele yonke inzalo kuthi umhlaba ubhekaphi kulamalanga nje ngivile nje tikhalo la sethi siyavela lokuthi sibonakala njani siyakhicita but asatiwe sinalo lo office la AI angathi labaningi benisebenzile sebayadi tinfo emhlabeni indlela kusetshenzwa ngayo titawushintsha completely so asingasali singiwe sinalo lo office la AI vele sengilona letawu umhlaba kuthiwa i-village tonke izinto sibonakala nje khona la khumbi ya khona la so ke asingasali sisebenziseni ihhovisi uya athi ke president masikhuluma naye asibuke lamanye amaviki sakuphi ngenza bayimthuthuko so ke silapho semgomeni usithumile live nje lelingaphuma emlonyeni wakhe akhona nalamanye ngidawukhotisha linye nje masibonana naye akwenteki ahamba ngakalikhothishi iSingapore asengicasatele ukuthi seyikuphi iSingapore namuhla today the Singapore economy is one of the most stable in the world with no foreign debt better squared from outside countries high government revenue and consistently positive surplus bakhicita. The Singapore economy is mainly driven by exports in electronics, manufacturing and machinery, financial services, tourism, and the world's busiest cargo seaport. Lengulanzile la ngilokuthi president ufuna sifike lapho. Shothi sisengaqala ufuna kusetshenzwe kuze ukuthi sifike kuleli zinga leli lamanye amavela asafike kulo.
Facebook Head of Business Transformation, Mavela Squani, says they've received 400 million Malangeni funding from EU for 7 years to fight unemployment, aligning with the government's private sector and tertiary institution skills development program.
Sithole funding na EU silive ya 400 million. Letaba nathi 7 years. Why this funding? The funding lena it's asesithole lithuba lekucedza i-unemployment. Nyalo le model yekubambisana kwe-private sector la first bheka khona na business Eswatini nema-TVET colleges. Sithi akubuyela abantwana laba graduated 10 years ago. Sibabuyise ngoba solo bahleli kakhulu laba labahleli. Sibabuyise sibafake nakule kuthiwa wena utawakha umsebenzi. That is entrepreneurship. Bese nasesibakhile basukumile bosomabhizinisi CEO bathi sibaba mentorisha. Shothi lo mntwana uyathathwa ungena ku-training ye-entrepreneurship nacedza lapho ungena ku-mentorship program. In fact, before mentorship siya-incubator nasela kule qualification yakhe simfundisi lokushisela. So yakwati kushisela sithi singakwenta njani ube ngusomabhizinisi wokushisela wakhe ama-products lathi bese simyamisa-ke kulowo njengaye lo seasoned business person latawukhona ukuthi am-mentorishe over a period atogcine acinile. Khana mentorisha lo somabhizinisi utawubhadalwa wena somabhizinisi ukuthi uhouse lo mntwana naw bahouse bangitheni kunemali yakhona ikukhuthate lokuthi ubahouse lekuthungeni nje niyabahouse abawuthunga niyabahouse abayokwakha emathulusi toothpick iqhamuka ngale sinetigodo litolofela dzingani litolofela dzinga loshisela kone grinder jube lovini bese ufaka kwe-reinforced okuncane kuthi bisa sigodo uyafaka la selitolofela liphelele but iqhamuka lengaphandle. So isho njalo le program ye-private sector, TVET, EU and government lecala unfortunately nyalo July target ukuthi 59 wetingudla sakhe ema-industrial hubs solely to what process noma kwakha ematingo ngaba mathulusi kungaba timoto njengoba sisho sizawutargeta leli hamba kakhulu bo-Toyota na Nigeria has done it. Mina sayihlanganisa Nigeria akayibithi nge-Toyota uyibitha ngegama lase-Nigeria njengoba bendile ko-GWM nabakho emashayina kwi-GWM yayibona i-Colt engine lenye i-4Y. So kudaloko kosomabhizinisi thina silungisela njani ngesilibongo vula space seku-accommodate lo mntwana nasekufika la you will make money nalo mntwana uyamkhutsata but it will be a controlled program bakhutsata ufinance i-industrialization lokusho sizokwakha letinto sitakhe mbamba sesiyavala egedeni ukuthi kungangena ngoba sekukhona la sesakha lesikasithi ke manje. That is how we will be able to win the economy nekucedza i-unemployment.
Those are some of the highlights for the first Lubombo Business Conference hosted by FESPIC yesterday at the Lubombo region. After the break, we connect with Mr. Spear for today's financial markets.
Do you reside in any of the Ubombo sugar communities or nearby areas? Here is a notice. A door-to-door TV license exercise will be conducted in your area from the 19th to the 28th of June 2024. The personnel conducting this exercise would be easily recognizable by their attire bearing the Eswatini TV logo and their individual name tags. Your cooperation is valuable to us, and we respectfully request that you participate in this exercise truthfully. Do not be deceived. It is not appropriate for anyone to request money for a television license. Make payment for your TV license by using MTN mobile money at 7622 000 or by visiting the nearest post office. Eswatini TV, Sibugo Semaswati.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Market View, the final episode this week. Thank you for tuning in. If you've just joined us, welcome. At this moment, I want to connect with Mr. Spear, our in-house economist, to give us today's financial markets. A very good afternoon, Mr. Spear. Thank you for joining us once again this afternoon. There's still tensions in South Africa between the DA and the ANC because the president still has not made cabinet appointments. Has this in any way affected the rand today?
Hi, good afternoon, Lulu, and thank you. So the story in South Africa, if you look at the currencies, what is happening is we are actually currently faced with a joint government of national unity, which is actually failing to actually decide. So that is sending a very wrong message to the markets. Because if you have a government of national unity that is just even failing to decide on how the cabinet posts are going to look like, so that in effect has actually affected the Lilangeni together with the rand, such that it has lost a couple of grounds today against all major currencies, losing against the dollar, against the euro, and against the Japanese yen. But what we are seeing there is because gold is doing relatively well these days, so the effects are not as one would expect, but one would really expect markets to start worrying, given that it's been more than 7 days and we're still awaiting a government. So that raises fears of whether this government will be able to deliver, if they're even failing to agree on the very onset. They're just failing to decide at the very onset. So that's sending a bit of worries into the markets and negatively affecting our currency markets. Thank you.
So when you look at commodities, gold and Brent crude prices today, how are they performing this afternoon?
So when we are moving into commodities, we are seeing that gold is holding steady at the 2.3 region. Probably because, the markets are still very much cautious in terms of what is going to happen in the US and in London. We are still awaiting to see the data and how it's going to play out. But gold is benefiting on the backdrop of that because markets are a bit more cautious while we are awaiting the data. So we know when people are cautious, they are going to hedge, and gold usually becomes that hedging commodity. And then when you look at the price of Brent crude, with Brent crude, what we are seeing is a situation where yes, prices have increased, but they are staying relatively at the same level, if you look at what we've been tracking the whole of this week. So the price of Brent crude is relatively at the same level, just that if you're tracking it hour on hour, you will see that, it probably increased from the previous hour. But what sends those chills through the market is probably because, the markets are still uncertain about demand that's going to come out in the future. That again will be informed by the data that's coming out today in London and today and tomorrow in the US concerning inflation data, jobless data, and, GDP data in both these leading economies. Thank you.
Speaking of the US inflation, how are they performing in international markets this afternoon, starting with the US market?
So when we are looking at the international markets, Lulu, what is important to note is we are actually awaiting that jobless data to come out for tomorrow, and we are awaiting the GDP figures to come out tomorrow. We are awaiting inflation figures to come out tomorrow. So what we are seeing when we are looking at the numbers is, in as much as all indicators are pointing on a positive, and with the Dow Jones actually closing on, I think it's a 3-week high. But what markets are now doing is, if you will see, the losses that we are making on the Dow Jones and on the Nasdaq are now being absorbed through the S&P 500. So what that signals is, there is a portfolio realignment amongst investors. So we are also seeing investors moving away from the semi-chips conductors, like your NVIDIA and like your Micron. But so that would signal that we are actually approaching the end of the microchip or the AI infused market rush. So we are seeing those portfolio realignments. So that is actually holding markets together at this present moment while we are waiting those numbers to come out. But when you look at the earnings data coming out from the chip manufacturers, they're really showing signs of the chip manufacturers not really doing well. So investors are somehow realigning their portfolios to deal with that shortfall. So we are going to see how markets are going to react to the news that is going to come out tomorrow, as we are rebasing our interest rate cuts expectations. So if we move to Europe, What we are seeing in Europe is a story of pretty much mixed relations. So there, what one would really say is most of the Euro region, the European region, is being dragged down by France, fears in France of what is going to happen in that snapshot election. So we've already seen polls really placing the the far right national party in the far right party in France at a level where they're most likely going to win the election. So what that would mean for the entire Euro region is, France, which is the second largest economy within that region, it might actually have quite a number of shifts in its political outlook, and that might actually affect the entire Eurozone. So that is why when we are looking at Europe, we are seeing this lackluster movement. And then in London, again, what we are waiting to see is those movements are in terms of the GDP data that's coming out tomorrow. And also, we are waiting to hear from the governor of the Bank of England. And at the same time, the UK is still looking out for elections next week. So there might be those changes and shifts again in policy. We've seen that the liberals are really leaning towards more regulation within the sector, keeping a lot of capital within London instead of having flow out. So markets are trying to weigh all of that and see if Sunak returns to government as well. So that's what markets are trying to weigh at this point in time in the UK. And we've seen the pound is actually gaining a bit. So that also affects trading in terms of UK stocks being a bit expensive relatively compared to other major currencies. And then in Japan, what we are seeing in the Asia region and Asia Minor is the fact that there is that rebasing and awaiting expectations of what is going to happen in the US and London. While at the same time, when you're looking in Japan, you will find we note that the Bank of Japan is still trying to rebase and rethink around strategies of stabilizing the Japanese yen. So there's an entire survey that's been commissioned to that end. And then if you look into mainland China and looking into Hong Kong, what we are seeing at present is because of the instability and uncertainty in markets, we are seeing, a lot of Chinese money moving into bonds instead of being out there in markets. So that is actually showing us how cautionary the Chinese markets are. And then if you look into Hong Kong, for example, you'll also see that recently we had President Xi Jinping signing into law an act that actually imposes a death penalty on people who are advocating for the freedom of the independence or sovereignty of Taiwan. So what that means is it also scares a bit into what is going on in Hong Kong following Article 24 as well, which also just so stringent, and we're seeing China trying to unify the whole region and all its territories. So that has actually affected Hong Kong. That's why we are seeing the Hang Seng trading at that level, losing quite a bit of ground as well. And then coming into South Africa, what we are seeing is the fact that markets are very scared. I mean, we've shared about 400 and something points back to the 77,000 mark. So that's basically on the background of a government that's failing to make a decision. Then people are asking themselves, will they make decisions going forward? But, we're seeing gold trying to hold on again, stabilizing the market a bit. And again, in Eswatini, we are still at the same level post-earnings season.
All right, thanks so much, Mr. Spear, for that analysis today for our financial markets. That was in-house economist, Mr. Sanele Spear, giving us today's reaction to the markets. We've come to the end of our program. Thank you for joining us. Market View comes back on your screens next week, Monday at exactly 2 p.m. And if you've just joined us, worry not, you can still watch this episode on our YouTube page, Eswatini TV. Have a lovely weekend and stay safe and sale kahle.